Selamat datang, good day, and welcome to the International and Domestic Virtual Colloquium, or better known as COMAT 2023, organized by the Institute of Teacher Education, International Languages Campus, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm Joanne, and I am the moderator for today's Colloquium webinar series. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on our live YouTube channel and EduRap TV for COMAT 2023. The theme for this year's colloquium is Optimizing Future-Proof Education. The goal of this colloquium is to provide the space for educators all over the world to discuss, share, and exchange views with fellow educators on topics related to education and how it is transforming globally. Indeed, through this colloquium, there is plenty to learn and expand our knowledge. COMAT 2023 brings to you 18 series in the form of individual webinars with speakers from Malaysia and other countries. This is the 8th series of our virtual colloquium, and I hope you will stay tuned till the end of this session. However, before we listen to the talk, let me lay out a few housekeeping matters. First, everyone who attends this webinar series will be given an e-certificate after each session. Therefore, do not forget to register your name. Make sure your name is typed correctly and your email address is accurate too. The registration link is pinned at the chat of this YouTube channel, and it will be open 30 minutes after this webinar has begun. Second, we would love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to send them through the chat box. The speaker will be answering questions at the end of the session. So if we don't answer your questions during today's webinar, we will be sure to follow through afterwards. And finally, we would like to encourage you to share today's webinar with others through your social networks. Now, allow me to introduce our speaker for today. Dr. KEAN is a Japanese language master lecturer at Institute of Teacher Education, International Languages Campus, better known as IPG KBA, Kuala Lumpur. She has been involved in teacher education since 2005. She obtained her BA Honours and MA in Japanese language in Japan. Additionally, she pursued her studies part-time locally and obtained her MED in Educational Administration and Management at the University of Science Malaysia and PhD in Adult Learning and Professional Development at the National University of Malaysia. Among her current academic, research, and innovation interests are student empowerment, student engagement, meaningful learning, self-directed learning, lifelong learning, and continuous professional development. Future-proofing teaching in teacher education, 3 tips to future-proof student teachers. This is the topic for today's webinar. So, as a brief elaboration, her webinar today will explore on and focus on the significance of future-proofing teaching in the 21st century teacher education and ways on how teacher education might adapt for the future. Now, I'm pretty sure we are very excited to hear more about this topic. Without further delay, let's please welcome Dr. KEAN.
Thank you, Madam Joanne, for the introduction, and a very good afternoon to all the viewers out there. I'm very pleased and honored to be here to share what my thoughts and what my practice, my current practice on the title, Future-Proofing Teaching in Teacher Education. And I'll be sharing 3 tips, the 3 main tips to future-proof students, teachers in my current practice. And my content of my sharing will be, I will first define what is future-proofing learning. Next, I will be presenting on the significance of the future-proofing teaching in the teacher education field. And thirdly, of course, I'll be sharing my 3 main tips of future-proofing student teacher in my classroom. So first, the first question, what's future-proofing learning? Now, the future-proofing is actually coined by leading cognitive science expert by the name of Paul A. Kirshner. And it actually provides a practical and much needed alternative to pursuing holistic and critically, this is a criticism against the definition of 21st century skills or embracing competency-based students' graduation standard. So we have been hearing a lot on the 21st century skills, but it is kind of holistic, isn't it? So that is where the idea of future-proofing came about. So it actually, future-proofing advocates the best way forward. In pandemic times, our recent pandemic has hit education hard, right? There are many learning loss that happen all over the world. And so this is a criticism against the 21st century skills that is actually, we are now looking back. This is something that is nothing new. You will be saying, hey, this is the same old thing. Yes, it is. But it is actually, we are looking more specifically on the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, which is actually necessary to continue to learn in a stable and enduring ways in a rapidly changing world. So, having said that, we can actually say that we can forget about the 6C. No, we can't. 6C is still relevant, but it is actually, we are now looking at what is important. We must always look back to the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and attitude. So basically, why do we need to future-proof learners? So let us look at it. Because we need to ensure that they learn a wide range of skills or learning capabilities that will allow them to negotiate and thrive in an increasingly complex global workplace. In fact, we can speak for ourselves here. Our workplaces has become more and more complex, right?
Yes.
Our work has become more and more complex and kind of tedious, right?
Yes.
So,
agree.
Yeah, this is the present time. So what about in the future? Will it be better? We don't know. So that's why we need to future-proof our students. So these crucial skills, we are saying the wide range of skills and the learning skills, we are often referred to as the 21st century skills, which refers to the 6C, right? And also, we also call it the transversal skills, which is many known as soft skills. So the development of deep learning, we are still about deep learning, or deep expertise in any domain and discipline, and the development of these learning capabilities or skill actually occurs simultaneously, at the same time. And one is not attained without the other. It's all interrelated. The skills. So as I said, they are all interrelated skill or learning capabilities that include the basic of literacy, numeracy, and use of ICT. This is a must. These are the skills that is a must. And the analytical skill, such as problem solving, creativity, and criticality. The critical thinking here. And application skills such as persistence and using feedback.
Yes.
This is something that I like to emphasize. We must actually train the students to apply the skills such as being persistent, and they must be able to use the feedback, whatever feedback that they have obtained from the teacher or from their peers. And the social skill for effective communication and collaboration, which is a common word now, or the skills that we need. And the intercultural capability, and the ethical behavior, and citizenship, and last but not least, the community service. So let us go on. The purpose of we doing all that future-proofing students are they're actually encouraging and supporting their attainment of all the capabilities so that they will have the knowledge, the know-how, the attitudes and values, as I said earlier, and which they will need to thrive as lifelong learners in schools, in colleges, and also their workplace in future. So we have to have the culture of lifelong learning, because now it is necessary that we need to create a society of lifelong learners. So I like to go on. Now here are the 7 survival skills of the 21st century skill. And this is what they said from the Teach Taught. They have these 7 skills students will always need. What are those? Curiosity and imagination. Students have to be made curious and be imaginative to keep on learning. Next is initiative and entrepreneurship. As we know, the Generation Z or the Alpha are not the same like ours. Like our generation. Forget about our generation. Let's talk about the students and the future generation. And then we have this agility and adaptability. This is a must. Okay, the students have to be trained to be agile. No more like we can take our own sweet time, in doing things, and also they have to be adaptable.
Okay.
And next, we go on to the critical thinking and problem solving, which is the same thing, right? But it is a necessity that they will need, okay? And then, of course, effective oral and written communication. And then another not a new term, collaboration across networks. We have a webinar session about networking, right?
Yes.
Previously. And of course, leading by influence. And last but not least, we need to be able to enable them, their skills that they need are to be able to assess and analyze information. Okay? So, what are the significance of future-proofing in teacher education? Okay? First is, it actually deepens the discourse on teacher education. Specifically, consider teacher education in the light of technological advancement of the IR4, as well as education in times of uncertainty. I'm sure it hit all the teachers badly, right? Including the teacher education when pandemic, the lockdown happened, and all of us have to depends totally on technology to enable us to go for our e-learning, online classrooms, and things like that. So in the future, such circumstances might reoccur. Okay, so we have to be prepared to teach the teachers well so that they can handle their classrooms or their education can go on. And then secondly, it's actually explored the tension between the perennial in education. I hope I got the pronunciation correct. And the unpredictability of the future, because the future is just unpredictable.
Yes.
Okay, and we ask the question on how teacher education can contend with these tensions and how teachers can actually be prepared for unexpected circumstances. And therefore, it actually future-proofing in teacher education will pave the ways on how teacher education might, or rather, it has to adapt for the future. So, and moving on, additionally, it will actually preparing student teachers for the current context, including the adverse circumstances in schools. I'm sure schools are also changing a lot.
Yes.
The environment, even the system, the school terms are changing, and as well as for an increasingly complex and rapidly changing world, which actually requires agility. Therefore, just now, the agility and adaptability are actually very crucial skills that the students need to have. Our teachers need to have. So, which enables teachers to adapt to the fast-changing, technology-led nature of the 21st century, referred to by some the IR4, right? And the changing societal expectations. Therefore, so that actually they can in turn prepare their learners, their pupils, for life and work in a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. And these are called the VUCA. Okay, I think VUCA was actually a term that is for this uncertain and complex and changing world now. Okay, everything can change in a split of a moment. Okay, so we actually need to prepare not only our students but especially our student teachers, so that they can prepare their learners, okay, in such world. So moving on, again, I like to emphasize, why should we stop teaching content and start teaching the children, including our students, teachers? Because what are people for? How can school help is the first thing that we need to educate our student teacher well. Okay, how can they in the school, how can the school as an organization of the as the society in a society, in a community, help the people of the community. And what is the relationship between a good school and a good work and living well? So a good school is not a good school if it does not have a good work that in the future for the students. And the good work will actually lead to their living well, right? This is what we want. And then another one is what's worth knowing. How is that different for every person? And how might school reconceive themselves in response? So schools are not just like factory producing workers anymore, but we need to look at the difference or need to differentiate the person, the people, the students that are in the school. So what is the relationship between school and social justice is another one that we should stop teaching content and start teaching the pupils or the students. Now, how does a connected planet change the kinds of things a person needs to understand? So that is why, how does our networking across the world change us? Okay, and the understanding that we are trying to make our students see the world as it is. Okay, and here are my 3 main tips. Okay, there are many tips, but generally I would group it into 3 main tips of what I have been trying to do in my own classroom. And my first tip is very easy. It's just to engage. Okay, I normally engage my students by asking you, why are you here? Why are you here? Why are we here? Why are we doing? Why are we in this classroom? Why are we having this lesson? Just to remind them of their purpose. Okay, as I always tell my students, everything must start from objectives, your purpose.
Okay.
Or you can alternatively ask, of course, we don't ask the same question, it will be boring. So we can change our question like, why do you want to be a teacher? Okay. And what kind of teacher do you want to be? Okay, these are the alternative questions that can throw out to the students before you start the lesson, okay? And how does this course relate or help you to become a good or effective teacher? Okay, and I normally like to joke with my students, do you want to just be a mere teacher? To be a good teacher? Or to be a teacher that makes a difference? Okay, so I like to actually, provoke their thoughts. And what does it mean or it takes, to be a 21st century teacher? Okay, so these are the alternative questions, and of course, etc., etc., etc. What is important here is actually we need to have this continuing reflection on the course content that we are teaching. Especially, I like to emphasize on the course learning outcomes. Okay, I'm sure that our courses have now the new curriculum has only about 3 course learning outcomes. We need to actually keep on making them reflect what is the content of today's lesson with the course learning outcomes. And in short, it is their learning process. To become a teacher, not the learning process just in the course, but to becoming a teacher. As the Malay word, the kemenjadian guru is what it matters, okay? Becoming a good teacher, okay? To those who don't understand Malay language, we have this term in Malay that is very good. Kemenjadian murid is becoming human or pupils to become a real good human, and also kemenjadian guru. So I like to actually throw them the question of where we are from in this course, where the course is concerned. Where are we now? What are we doing now? At which course learning outcome are we now?
Okay.
And to where are we heading? Okay, so I like to actually keep on reviewing the course content. Where are we now? Or where are we going to? Where were we from? Okay, so in short is the learning process. So the key points for these first tips are we actually have to highlight the goals or the objective of learning, of being there. Okay, being there to become a teacher. So everything starts from objective. And emphasize on the reflective skills, that is their reflection. With reflection, I'm sure the students will be able to have their self-monitoring skill and the learning awareness will be there. Okay, so we need to emphasize on reflection. And in other words, we actually empower students. In our students means the teacher student in taking charge of their learning process, or be it the learning journey in becoming a teacher. So my tips number 2 is I term it as study. Okay, so this is the study as it is study. The difference between learn and study is different, right? Study is more in depth, and just now I highlighted deep learning, right?
Yes.
Here I would like to just highlight the key points are emphasize on student centeredness or learning centeredness, not lecture. We don't lecture anymore. Okay, and we must incorporate the 6C, okay, be it the learning capabilities or you can name it the transversal skills in our learning activities or tasks. Okay, not ambiguously, but specifically, explicitly, okay, not the implicitly. And of course, we have to integrate technology in our learning activities and tasks. Okay, we don't have a choice anymore because the world now is, we are now at IR4. And allocate, please, short break, or I call it toilet break. Okay, even though the students might not be going to the toilet, but at least we give them 5 because study is the tedious part where they need to really go for their deep learning. That's where, therefore, they need a break. Okay, our brain can only concentrate for a certain time. Okay, so the real learning would take place if our concentration is there. See? So we need to allocate the break.
Yes.
Don't just go on like what I term it in the Japanese, we say Shinkansen, just move on to that. No, and too fast is also not good. And that is what I learned from my own experience. And sufficient time, please allocate sufficient time for the learning activities and tasks. And if the students learn in their different way, right? We allocate the time to maintain our lecture in a certain time. But if the students need more time, be flexible enough to allow them time to finish the task. Okay, so we need that. And lastly, the third tips is you activate. Now, which I use the term activate. Now, the key points for this is you visit the learning goals or objective through the co-development of assessment criteria with the student teacher. I like to do that because we ask them to do certain tasks, right? At the end of it, we actually need to tell them the tasks are for what goal just now? Just now, the course learning outcomes. We must hit all the lesson learning outcome that they have, the TLO, we call it the teaching learning outcome.
Yes.
By co-developing, okay, your product, how can we say that this is good, this is not good? So what are the criteria that is necessary to have that? So we co-develop the assessment criteria. Remember, we are educating teachers to be, okay, these are this one. So they need to be able to see, to connect how the assessment with the objective, as it is very important, okay? And emphasize on sharing, not on presenting, please, okay? It's not about presenting their work, it's their sharing of their work and their self and peer review and evaluation by having the co-development of the assessment criteria. So this is what we can have in the activate. And also, I always like to reinforce learning via I call it my twofold reflection or takeaway. We have this Japanese that we say obento. Obento is your takeaway lunch, right?
Yes.
Your dinner or whatever.
Okay.
So I have my obento. What is your obento of the day or takeaway from the lesson? And I normally I base on the connective reflection or the affective reflection domain. So connective is their thinking, what they have learned. Affective is how they feel. This is very important. Okay? And also, we actually have to look at as a student teacher, as a learner, and as a teacher to be. We must always consciously remind them they are going to be teachers. So they have to learn. I used to have this saying that I used to have a student that told me back who has been teaching for many years now. I met her one day. She said, Sensei, I still remember what you have told me before. Frankly speaking, I can't remember what I told her. But she told me, Sensei, what you told me was a teacher tends to teach the way we learn. I find that might be really true, right? Did I say that? I guess.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Of course I did, because that is why it's so important that our student teacher have to learn the way of the 21st century learners do. And we need to actually train them to be lifelong learners.
Lifelong learners.
Yes. So my concluding remarks, are actually, I'm from Kedah, so we have this saying that pi mai tang tu. Okay. How no matter what terms we are using, we are using the future proving now. Now because of the uncertain times that we are living in, we have to go back to the UNESCO 4 pillars of learning. Okay, I'm sure many of you all out there know about this. I'm going to go quickly. Learning to know, learning to do, and learning to be, and the last one, learning to live together. This is what counts. Any changes in education, I believe we will not run away from these 4 pillars of learning. So again, I like to emphasize back our job as teacher educator. We need to make sure that our student teacher learn how to know, learn how to do, learn how to be or become a good teacher, and learn how to live together. And food for thoughts. If we teach today's lesson as we taught yesterday's, we actually rob them of tomorrow's. Okay? So that is by John Dewey. And lastly, my word, if teacher educators' core vision is about educating or producing teachers with a heart, I always tell my students, teachers with a heart, then as teacher educator, we have to have a bigger one. Okay? With that, these are all my references, and with that, I thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Ang, for sharing your useful tips that certainly we can try to adapt and adopt. Her amazing experiences and insightful thoughts for us to ponder. I'm sure we have learned a lot. Hence, what's your obento of the day? Drawing on her teacher educators' inner awareness on the importance of student-centered experiential learning and her ongoing efforts in her current instructional practices, she had presented 3 tips for you. Number 1, engage. Number 2, study. And number 3, activate. So we have a question here.
Okay. Sorry,
Yes.
Madam Joanne, I forgot to mention just now. The engage, study, and activate are actually is actually a lesson plan model.
Okay.
We call
lesson
it the
plan model.
ESA. And I found that this lesson plan model, the ESA, is actually very relevant to our present world. Of course, the commonly used is the PPP, right? That is presentation, practice, and production. But for me, when I reflect back on my current practice, I find that I am actually planning based on the lesson plan of ESA. That again is engage, study, and activate. Okay. So I would actually encourage, we plan our lesson using the ESA model.
ESA model.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So while teachers out there, student teachers out there planning your lessons, you can actually reflect on what Dr. Ang has shared. All right. Remember the acronym ESA. You have the ESA there. All right. So yes, and especially the alternative questions that she had given earlier, do they provoke your thinking actually? And now Before we conclude, maybe there's a question here. How can student teachers work on improving their agility to be future-proof teachers? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do they work on improving their agility?
Yeah, agility means we need to be healthy, okay? To be healthy. Healthy physically, healthy in your mind, healthy in your heart, and healthy in your soul. Means that without health, we don't have anything. When you are agile, you will actually move quickly, right? You cannot move slowly. Take your own sweet time. And if you're not happy, you will never move quickly. Okay, that's why I say your heart must be healthy. And if you actually you're not strong or steady spiritually, then you will be so easily disheartened by your challenges. So that's why, to me, agility will have to have healthy physically in your body, in your mind, your heart, and soul. Okay, that's all from me. Okay.
Yes. So with that, we would like to conclude the webinar session for today. Thank you all for watching. We hope you have learned and enjoyed today's webinar presentation. I would like to once again thank our speaker, Dr. KEAN, and not to forget our technical team here at the Institute of Teacher Education International Languages Campus, especially Mr. Satya, Mr. Daini, and Mr. Fazi for today, and express our gratitude to Educational Resources and Technology Division, VSTP, Ministry of Education Malaysia, KPM, the producer, Dr. Suras, Studio Director, Mr. Muhammad Azian, Webmaster, Mr. Muhammad Farid, streamer, Ms. Nurul Ain, and all wonderful viewers today. Please do not forget our next webinar series, which will be held tomorrow, Friday, 31st March 2023. This is going to be the 9th from 18 series. It will be live at 10 a.m. Malaysian time. We will have Madam Chapa Purnima Velagedara, the head of Department of English, National Institute of Education, Sri Lanka. Till then, jumpa lagi. See you again. Goodbye from Malaysia.